Hello everybody, welcome to the Scrutineer Live, here just in the upcoming event for the first round of the GPVWC's Super League tomorrow night. All can be found here on SimNews.TV, on our Facebook page, on our YouTube channel, on our Twitch. All of that can be watched absolutely live tomorrow. Why am I here? I'm here to tell you how incredible it is and why on earth you should be watching and explaining the intricacies. There's more to this series than any other you'll find in sim racing. Sim racing generally, you put everyone in the same cars, in the same mods, and you find out who's the best driver. You kind of do that here, and you do that particularly in this first race, but generally for the whole of Super League, cars are not even. It's a massive team event. If you've never watched it before, our channel, we did it all last year. Watch the Scrutineer from last year, you will find out that you have tyre choices. All the teams pick different ones each race. You've got engine choices, you've got engine upgrades, you've got car upgrades, we even have staff bidding, finances, marketing, loads of stuff. Everything you would find in like think of Motorsport Manager, but in real life with real drivers and everything going on, and then the drivers get in those cars and race each other as well. It really is like you can have a Mercedes against Minardis and stuff. It doesn't quite work out that way. It's much more even than some Formula 1 series that you may have seen in the past, or years that we may have seen in the past. But it really is absolutely incredible test of skill, not just from a driver's perspective in turning up and how can he set up the car, but an absolute team effort, not just within the teams as well. As we'll come on to, we have different engine manufacturers. They may work together as well because they develop the same engine, so that plays another factor in as well. So it's just an incredible series, and if you've seen the calendar as well, if you watched the Super League show, which was out earlier in the week, they preview all the drivers, they also preview the tracks and any sort of changes that have happened from last year. Remember last year, of course, our champion from this series was Rudy Van Buren, who's gone on to work for McLaren now. He's driven in Race of Champions, he's driven in the actual Race of Champions over in Saudi Arabia. I mean, it's absolutely incredible. It just shows the level of skill that you can need to have to win this series. That said, there is some incredible drivers on the grid this year as well. I'm sure we may even find another world's fastest gamer out of this lot. You heard it here first, we'll see. I'm going to go through quite a lot with you guys today. We've gone through so much in the off-season. I've not really been back. I hope you watched Formula Challenge and Super Cup the last two nights, because they've been incredible as well. It was a bit manic tonight, wasn't it? I mean, geez. Rain in Australia. I thought it was meant to be down under, it was meant to be sunny, but brilliant stuff down there. Watching what's happened at Super Cup, because those are the sort of stars that will be up in Super League next year. You may even see some of them this year, because some of them have got test drives with some of the teams, so they may step in 2 or 3 times this season, which is really exciting to see. And some of the guys we saw last year in Super Cup are now in Super League this year. So brilliant, it really does happen for most guys, the top guys particularly. This really is the creme de la creme of everything happening in GPVWC, and to be honest, Rfactor 2 single-seater racing in general. This is the place to be. I know it may not have been in the past, but I can see a shift of the tide. It's happening here at GPV, and that is, everyone's starting to wake up and actually realise what on earth is going on here. Incredible series, been shouting about it for years. You're going to get sick of me if you're watching this series, because I'm chatting about this every bleeding week, near enough, between me and the Super League show. But it is useful. I hope some of you guys might find it. Last year we did find that some teams maybe changed some of their influences and what they were developing based on some of the car stuff that we may have pointed out. Maybe they didn't, maybe that's just me, but it looked that way a little bit. So, hello to all the team managers out there that may be watching. You may be slightly disappointed at this stage, because although I've said upgrades and all that sort of thing happens this season, it doesn't happen for Australia. The teams have started putting upgrades on the cars, but they won't be finished in time to put on. They haven't been finished ahead of time. There's no way you could have been, because the R&D wasn't open early enough. So you could have there's zero upgrades at all from engines or cars on the cars for Australia tomorrow. Doesn't mean though that we're already getting feelings of what some teams are doing from the off-season already. They've gone through the whole bidding process, so we shall go through designers now, then we'll go through engines, we'll go through tyre choices as well, because that is a slight change, and what you'll see tomorrow. And then our next show, ahead of round 2, is where you'll see all the upgrades starting to come on the cars in the main. Some teams may choose to go to round 3, which we'll come on to as well with some of the new boys particularly. But at this stage, you're not going to see any upgrades on the cars. So this is the one race where you actually do see almost who is the fastest driver on their day, just the driver. So it does normally bring up a much closer grid than sometimes, because yeah, just everybody hasn't had as much time with the mod as well, and everyone's, you know, it's Australia, everyone loves this track, everyone's been on this track year on year on year, so everyone knows it really well. It's just one of those places. So we'll go in first, because as we have mentioned in the past, you'll find that these all the teams have to go through what is effectively a bidding process using in-game financials. It sounds a bit boring at this stage, but bear with me. It's important for the racing. So, there's loads of stuff that go on, but of that, one of the bigger things, I suppose, is they have to hire a chief designer. So this is the guy he's not a real person, it's just a person in game, but it has ratings, and the ratings is what matters. So the ratings, basically, they help in the speed of your development. So if you've got a guy with a much higher skill, which costs you more, then and there's only one of it. There's a particular guy. It's effectively like a make-believe, engineer that you're hiring. So he comes along and he brings his ratings along. So particular areas which we'll go into. So if I show you the designers, this was what the team owners, when they were bidding, got given this screen. So they had this up. So in this case, this is for chief designer, but as you'll see, they also had to hire a mechanic and a commercial manager. It shows in 2017 who each one went to. So it shows there that, for example, the top designer last year was developing the Adonis car. So you'd expect Adonis to have an advantage. Effectively, when you look across, just to give you guys an idea there's 5 different areas there. You've got aero, you've got differential, you've got front wing, you've got rear wing, and you've got chassis as well. So the chassis is the weight, effectively. So those are the areas where effectively a 5 is your average, doesn't improve you at all. If they've got a rating of 6, it's 10% quicker when you're developing. And if you've got a rating of 7, it's 20% quicker. So obviously you want as many 7s as you can. There's nobody less than 5s, but you do pay the price if you're paying. Now the minimum wage on the right there, ignore, because that's not actually what people will have paid at all. We don't know what people will have paid, so that's the interesting thing. It's blind bidding, effectively. It goes to the top bidder, but we don't know what people have paid. Some people have paid massively over the odds in the past when they have no competition for that person. So it's a bit like bidding in, if you're trying to buy a house in Scotland, I think you go through that process. So looking through it though, we'll go through who sort of kept what. So Adonis haven't kept that top guy. That guy has now moved to ACR Zaxby, taking that one on board. You then go down to the second guy. Nordgen have kept that one. Fair play to them, they've stuck with that one. Did well last year. You do look through though and go, if they're trying to develop any aero, that'll be slightly slower, for example, than the ACR one. About the only thing different there, otherwise they've got the exact same. Hawkeye, they also kept theirs, so very well done to them. I believe, I'm just going to have to refer to my sheet here, that the Robert Dean one there for Red Archer actually did change hands. And that one, I think, went to, I want to double check, that one went to Walters, if I want to make sure. Yes, sorry, Adonis went to that one. Apologies. That one was actually Adonis that ended up with that one. So that's the top 4 there, actually went through to, you go ACR Zaxby, Nordgen, Hawkeye, and Adonis. So effectively, they're the top 4 guys there. Once you get below that, they're all quite even, and they have specialist areas, but they are all quite even. So those are the ones that I think you want to watch out for. They've got a slight advantage now when it comes to developing the cars, in that they can do it slightly quicker than most others. It's an interesting page there. You look at some of the ones that were never used, and actually it might even give you a bit of an idea of last year if you were following why maybe, for example, Mad Cape didn't have particularly good on there. Must be said though, some of these guys will have be paying, say, 375,000 for theirs. Others can be paying 5-6 million for theirs. So there is quite a disparity potentially here in what they've spent. But you then can't use that money elsewhere, because all that virtual money, not just used on designers, it's also what it costs you to develop a car, it costs you to transport the teams and the cars to the events. You have to pay for fuel, you have to pay for every tyre usage, you have to pay for drivers' salaries get paid, all that sort of stuff comes out of it. Plenty of stuff that we won't go into now because I'll bore you all to death for hours. So that's designers really. It's a little bit of an advantage there, the guys that you might have expected anyway at the top there. But interesting omission there with Walters, they've got one slightly lower down. No, I mean there's such small differences we're talking here, and it's only going to be on certain specialist areas. You may not notice it that much. Over the course of the season, it does make a bit of a difference. But we'll see as we go through actually if it has made much difference. You can really see when we get to round 2. If everyone's developed for round 2, they'll have developed the same period of time. After that it gets a bit murky because everyone sort of develops slightly differently. But if everyone develops for round 2, we'll get an idea, and you actually see there directly if they develop the same areas, if there's a percentage difference. It might only be 1%, but that can make a big difference on the car potentially, particularly if it's a certain area, a key area that they may have picked. So what we haven't really seen much. We've seen the guys test. So if you haven't seen GPVWC before, we're talking about R&D points. one of the things they have to do is earn those R&D points, and they do that by doing laps in testing, just like Formula 1 do. It doesn't sound that interesting, does it really? Because actually here we're not really putting parts on and testing. You've just got a car and you're driving around and you have to do a certain set of laps, kilometres, which effectively in this case is laps, and don't waste all your time really. So you just try and do that, and that will give you the maximum R&D points. There is a maximum. You can't earn, like, you can't just go lap and lap and lap and lap and lap forevermore and just earn loads and loads of points. It doesn't work that way. There is a maximum. It's capped per driver, so you can only earn a certain amount. So if you hit those targets, you might as well stop. Most teams do. The odd team carries on and does hundreds and hundreds of laps, and they use it as a proper test session, which is fine, but it's in the public eye, and quite a few do it on their own private servers and things like that. So there's not a huge amount really to gain from this. There's no benefit at all to being top from an R&D point towards the season. It's great for publicity, of course. It's great to be able to say, yes, we were fastest, and sort of stick it to your other drivers on the grid and really make them realise, oh my god, they're here, we might work. But actually, that doesn't make any difference at all to the car if you're top or bottom of the standings, as long as you've done the right amount of laps. That's the key one. So we'll quickly go through though. So you look at Bahrain. Ooh, I've got to stand this way now, haven't I? So we go for Bahrain, and actually, you know, I'll read a little bit into these. You go Walters. They've taken the top 2 places there. Some of these drivers you'll see quite regularly at the top here. So you go in Tyne, Burlack, Lopez, Hutchinson, Paolini, Olsen, Clip, Gaia. All these guys are up there. If you then went on to, where do we go? So Pang we went to. And you look, your old Tynes up there again. Costa jumps in this time with Lopez and Quint. Interesting there that Hawkeye are the top 3 out of the top 4. They obviously had a reasonable setup for Sepang. They're probably kicking themselves at Sepang not on the calendar. Or they just decided, well, actually, no, we're not going to have Walters take all the glory last time out. I suppose there is a little bit of pride involved in these things. That's probably about the only thing I can say with these. Let's go to Imola. Then Ricardo Costa and Fran Lopez ended up at the top. Fran Lopez is one of these, he sort of topped quite a lot of sessions last year as well. He quite likes hot lapping. You see quite a lot of these guys just go out and do 50 odd laps, 1 tank of fuel, fill it up, hard tyres, there you go. Some of these guys then come in, put on the ultra soft tyres and do a fast qualifying lap and throw themselves up the grid. Fine, enjoy yourselves, have fun. As a team manager, I'm not even looking at that, but for you guys it might be interesting to get an idea maybe where people are, where they're sitting. You know, it's quite some nice interesting names up there. You know, De Wol in the Storm there and Kilk in the Eval. That's quite nice to see. A little bit of a change there. Maybe that'll fit into the new season, because obviously all these cars are equal at this stage as well, doing these test sessions. And then you get Olsen in the Mad Cape on the final session as well. Lopez once again up there. Kilk up there again. Michael Ayer's doing quite well, and Hobble in the SRS there as well, and Help Up as well. So some interesting ones. Tyen still there in the top 7. You think, considering every team's bringing 3 drivers, so this list does go quite heavily on. So, you know, into the 40s. So to be up there in the top 5 or 6 is brilliant from a time perspective. There is quite a, I mean, just looking at the time perspective on the right hand side there, do not expect there to be a 1.8 second difference between the top 12 when we come to Australia. Not happening. They won't even happen across the whole grid. Apologies. So that won't happen at all across the whole grid. Last year it's about a second the whole grid. So, and it's even closer this year, I think, looking at who's on the grid itself. So yeah, quite excited to see what happens in Australia. So that's pretty much all the action we've seen so far on track. The other big thing, so we saw the designers, and the other big thing that happened, I suppose, is that engine bidding happened. So that will impact as well. So you may have seen in the Superleague show, we went through all the drivers, what teams and what they've all done that way. This one I'm going to quickly show you who bidded for which engine. So we've got the 4 engine manufacturers, just 4. All the other teams have to be a customer. It's bidding, but slightly differently, in that the manufacturers all put up a price, and then the customers pick that engine at that price. There's no negotiating. Nobody has a different price point to anyone else, something like that. So but there's no point. There's no way the engine manufacturers know what the other one's going to charge as well. So it does impact things. You have to charge between 18 and 40 million. Then that's pretty much the only thing. It's a big difference. So let's have a look-see at Talos. So this is produced by Hawkeye Racing. They were new last year, and they had a couple. Yeah, 2. They definitely had Adonis. I think they had 2 engine customers last year. They've got 2 this year, in Zurich and Adonis as well. Talos was priced slightly higher. It wasn't the most expensive, but it was the third most expensive. So, second most expensive, sorry. So in that respect, I mean, we were only talking a few million, so there's a little bit of loyalty there with things like Adonis and stuff who probably have quite a bit of influence. If you're a customer, you've got an awful lot of decisions to make at this stage. Do you go with an engine where there's not going to be many customers, so you've got a big influence on how that engine is made and what you might do towards your team? Or do you go with one where quite a lot of guys are quite likely to be in that team, and then you're no worse than anyone else on the grid? A lot of teams did that with Valiant last year and the year before. Equally though, price comes into it massively. So if you've got an engine there at 18 million, like one of them was this year, and you've got one out there at 23 or 24, I think it was, then that's quite a big difference. It's reasonable. It's a whole designer, or it's half the transport cost for the year. It's a few parts you can't put on the car potentially. So it's thoughts, particularly for some new teams with lower budgets. You have to really think about these things. But Talos, that's pretty good for them. I think that's a pretty standard amount. You should, in theory, with the grid, we should have like 3 on each manufacturer. Doesn't work out that way when you look at this. So yeah, that's Talos with the Hawkeye. Then go to Valiant. Valiant by ACR Zaxby, formerly Vod Bull. Last year they had about 6 or 7 of the teams. This year they've gone down to 2, and none of the teams stayed with them. Interestingly, some of them left the whole series. But the 2 new boys of Eval and Evolution Motorsports come on board, and they've signed up to the Valiant engine, which was the second cheapest engine on the grid. As the customer options there for them. We then move on to the new boys, Quasar. So this is Quasar by Edge Esports now, formerly Walters Automotive. Unfortunately, they priced themselves out of this. I think the actual amount they put in would have been very reasonable any other year than this year. So it was like about 23.5 million, I think it was, and that's legitimately fine. That was actually what most people paid last year. So to put it in that, but unfortunately this time they ended up being the most expensive engine, and they got no customers. They are their own. There is benefits to that. If they do it really well, they can be miles ahead of everyone else. There's nobody else using their engines, so there is a benefit to that. The downside to them is it's going to cost them 30 million to produce those engines, and they're getting no money back from any customers. So it is costly. Hopefully Walters, still quite new, but they did quite well last year, so they should be okay with that. And if they do well, then they're promoting their brand, and they can do well for the year after. It's quite interesting, really. The one team that did make a big change around though is Martex. So this is run by Nordstrom Racing. Last year really struggled to find customers. They did get one, but the year before they struggled as one, didn't have any. So it shows from where Quasar are now, they can move to this. So actually Martex managed to get themselves 6 customers, that's 7 teams on the grid, very much like Valiant last year. All those sort of teams move over. It seems to be Nordstrom Racing with the one to go forward this year. A couple of those teams did move, so Red Archer moved, Mad Kate moved, Street Fighter moved as well, so did Storm. All those guys moved across from Valiant over to Nordstrom. Wasn't much difference in the actual engine last year in reality when you look at the actual stats. And then Epic and Flag to Flag, the new boys as well on the grid, also chose that engine. This was the cheapest engine. They marketed themselves at 18 million, so you couldn't get any cheaper. Cheapest engine on the grid. So as a new team, that's a very legitimate option to take. Cheapest engine, and they, Martex have been around a while and know what they're doing, so it's a pretty safe bet, realistically. Going to be interesting for Nordstrom this year, in that they're used to, they've been used to not really having any customers doing what they only do what they want. Be interesting to see how they react with 6 teams potentially demanding different things, and how you manage that, or if they don't and they just do their own thing anyway. But if you do it very well, you've got 6 other teams that can do equally as well, or potentially beat you with that power unit. So that's quite interesting. There's a whole dynamic and lots of things that are thought of there. So that's the 4 engines there. So that's every team picking their engines. Let's quickly review through one of those. Look, hey, and I'm back. So teams put in. I know this is dragging on a bit. Sorry, but it really is quite important. I love it. I'm sorry. Maybe I'm a stats nerd for all this sort of stuff, but it's brilliant. So GPVWC Superleague. Every team manager had to put in. Well, they didn't have to, but they'd be daft not to. Had to put in their R&D, as did the engine manufacturers as well. They've also put in engine R&D. So develop those areas. You can only develop 2 areas at a time on the car, plus a pit area. Most will do tyre change, I'd assume. They did last year, and if at all. And then the engine manufacturers can do one area as well. So we don't know what areas they picked yet. They all have submitted them. We will find out just before the race next time out, so I'll tell you all the details for all that side of stuff. Which is, you know, it's going to be exciting to see. You've got some legitimate options at this stage. So at this point, if you're a manager, you will have, you'd hope, tested the mod completely. You will have gone through and worked out, yes, I want to develop these areas. But there's so many different factors you need to factor in. You've got to go, right, actually, that will finish at this stage, and what will other teams potentially do? And if you're one of the top teams, then you'll be developing for round 2. Because you can't afford to be behind the other top teams that will also develop for round 2. So you'd expect that. If you haven't watched this before, you can't get two developments in for every round. It just doesn't work. There's not enough time. So if you develop all the way up to round 2, you can't get development onto round 3. You'd have to wait to get it on for round 4. That means you're running the same car in round 3 as you were in round 2. So if you're a new team, do you take the option of going, right, I'm going to take on these big boys head on and develop as quick as I can for round 2 as well, and sort of try and beat them at their own game? Or do you do what some teams in the past have done? Storm tried to do it last year, and it was very well done from a management perspective, and it just didn't quite work out on track due to some crashes and bits and pieces. But it was quite legitimately a good strategy, is actually ignore round 2. Adonis had done it, 2016 I think they did it as well. Ignore round 2, turn up with the base standard car, or a small developed car, either way, and a lot less. So you're going to be one of the worst on the grid, but at this point the differences are quite small because no one's had much time to develop anyway. Then you come to round 3 with all your upgrades, and you've had longer to upgrade because you've waited until round 3. The other teams, the more experienced teams, haven't been able to put another upgrade onto the car. So you then turn up to round 3, potentially the best car on the grid. So you may not have done much in round 2, but you might not have done much in round 2 anyway if you're a new team. It depends on your trusty drivers and where you want to be. It's quite a hard sell to go to your drivers you're just going to abandon round 2. You've also got to think what round 3 is. In our case, it's Baku. That makes a difference as well. Do you do it for there? Do you not? And then, of course, at that point, you couldn't then develop for round 4 when everyone else turns out with all their upgrades, the ones that had done round 2. So they will then be miles ahead of you again, but you can be ahead in round 5 and so on and so on. So there is a third option. You can split your upgrades, so you can upgrade 2 areas at a time. So you could upgrade 1 for round 2. So you have a small upgrade effectively on one area, and you wait for the other one to finish for round 3. So then you've got an upgrade in round 2, an upgrade in round 3, and then you can have the first one again upgrading for round 4 and so on. So you've got some upgrade every time. You'll never have the best car because other teams can come to the event with 2 each time. But you'll always be up there. You're always going to have a top 4 or 5 car realistically. So it's legitimately quite a good strategy for a championship team, but quite a difficult sell. This is where the whole team thing comes in. Do the drivers understand that they're going to turn up to a grid with a handicap effectively, with a car that's not going to be able to make it that far? I've already heard, though, without going into it, we'll go into it next time when the actual upgrades come out, heard rumours that some drivers and some teams have already had a few small, I mean they're only going to be minor, failings with the upgrade system already, if that's delayed or if not doing 2 upgrades at the same time or not starting it on time, all that sort of thing. It does impact though, because every day counts. Every day is an upgrade percent, potentially something like that, or percentage of a percent. So there's legitimately interesting to see. But I'm hearing of 2 of the new boys and 1 of the experienced teams might not have done it perfectly. There is ways out of that. It might just change the strategy slightly. Might mean if you only develop 1 area, then I'd do that sort of every other one. If you're late anyway, you might go, right, I'll actually do it for round 3 now, so we do get ahead at some point. Or you just count your losses and have a few percent less than everyone else in round 2. Legitimate questions you have to ask yourself. It's very difficult to see, but we'll find out next time. The only other thing we have got to do that will impact tomorrow is tyres. Yes, we have got tyres. Everyone has to pick 3 compounds of tyres a week before the race. Of those 3 tyres, they can use all 3 if they want, but they have to definitely use 2. So looking at what we've managed to bring, all the teams have managed to bring. So of them, they've chosen, there's quite a standard option. It was the option that was sort of last year as well. Every team's chosen the Ultra Soft. I think, to be honest, everyone's done the testing and gone, well, that's the fastest tyre anyway. We're going to want to use that for qualifying. Legitimately fine. We'll use that for qualifying, and it means they also then would have to start the race on that tyre. So I would expect most people, I don't think you'd bring the Ultra Soft if you weren't going to use it. to do that qualifying, and then you start the race on the ultra soft. So that's not that interesting, but it does get interesting after that. So a lot of teams, and the standard from last year was using ultra soft, super soft, and soft. There is also medium and hard. So they're the 5 options they've got. Of those ones, most teams ended up picking ultra soft, super soft, and soft. So that's legitimately stayed on as well. So we can find that Nordstrom Racing, Edge Esports, Donut Engineering, Hawkeye Racing, Red Archer Virtual Racing Team, Mad Cape, Street Fighter Racing Systems, Storm Racing, Zurich Racing, and Epic Racing have all chosen to use that. So that's an awful lot of teams. They've just chosen those 3 types of tyres. There's a few other variants after that though for the other teams. So those guys have to use those. So the tyres this year are lasting a lot more than they were last year. Everyone's already sort of said that, so that's not news, which means that actually last year when we were just doing the 3 softest compounds, that made sense, because you were just doing as quick as you can anyway, because they were too slow, the other ones. So it's a bit of a mix. And sometimes as well you do get teams that have no desire to use that 3rd tyre. They're only ever going to use 2. They might only ever use the ultra soft and the super soft, but they throw in the 3rd tyre to throw people off. So there's a few examples of that potentially. Might not be, they might use them. But we've got a few others. So for example, let's go Eval, for example. They've chosen ultra soft, super soft, and they've also chosen the medium tyre. So they've not chosen the soft, they've chosen the medium. I think they're the only one to have done that. Yes. Then we've got a few teams that have done ultra soft, medium, and hard. In our case, that is ACR Zaxpeed have chosen that, which is one of the experienced teams choosing to do that. And Evolution and Motorsports have also chosen to do that. So that's another legitimate option there. And the other one that's out of sync as well is Flag to Flag. They have chosen the ultra soft, the soft, and the medium. So they haven't chosen the super soft, but they haven't got the hard either. So they've got an interesting mix as well. At this stage, we've got no real evidence to go where or what's going to be the best option for that. We don't really know. Testing doesn't show us anything in that way, other than the tyres are lasting longer. Testing, we didn't know what guys were running fuel-wise. We didn't know if they were really hot lapping. We don't know if they're using proper setups. We don't know if they're using proper cooling and loads of stuff. So it doesn't really tell us a lot. We'll find out tomorrow night. But you can already see there that quite a lot. There's a few that have already sort of worked from potentially the engine side of stuff. So you look at that and go like the Valiant guys with ACR Zaxpeed, Evolution, and Eval have all got like the medium tyre to use. Maybe there's something there, maybe there's not, I don't know, but it's quite possible. They haven't got super softs. And then you can go to Flag, new guys. Do they know what they're talking about? Great if they do, because they might have stolen a whole idea on everyone else from this, or they could have done the whole I'm a new guy and I've messed this up side of stuff. At this stage we don't know. It's unfair to say anything. You know, I love the fact they've rolled the dice there and gambled, done something different. Love that. Great work. All those guys. Everyone, nothing to say following the herd's not the right idea either. That might be the legitimate option. It worked last year for everybody. Why not? So we could find a lot of changes there. I'm excited to see what happens there. I'll be covering from the pit wall tomorrow on the Super League race. You can join us here on SimNews.TV, on our YouTube channel, on our Twitch, and on Facebook as well, Facebook Live. We'll be showing the whole race there. Also GPVWC.com YouTube will also have that there. Live timing via raceview.nl. They also have all the live timing if you really want to look for all your stats and everything else and be really interesting and, you know, sad like me. But all those little bits you can look through, it is all there. All the build up and everything will be on it as well. And then we have the Super League show reviewing it all the week after. And then 2 weeks after we do it all again. We get all 3 of the ladder because we're covering it all year here on SimNews.TV, including the Scrutineer shows and Super League shows and a few others as well that we're going to bring up and show you as well. So make sure you've got that subscribe button below and the bell notification as well, so when we're live you know we're live. Hope you enjoyed the show. Nothing much. We didn't really tell you a lot, did we? But I'll legitimately tell you next time out we can go through all the upgrades and exactly what's happening on the cars, and it'll make a big difference to what you see on track. So enjoy tomorrow's race. Super League, the greatest team sim racing event in the world. It really is. Enjoy it tomorrow, and I'm excited to see what goes on. Thanks for joining me. Any questions, add them in the comments, and I'll try and cover them next time out. thank you all for watching, and enjoy tomorrow.